So we're going to do a brief introduction in regards to the month of December. So when you look at December, we're going to bring out here. So when you look at the Egyptian month, let's turn this around. At the time of December, we look at the deacons, the Draco, the dragon. We have to understand when we look at the dragon, the Draco, the dragon, in Hindu astrology, you have to understand that each one of these deacons that is laid out as a 10 degree, 10 days, each day for 10 days equals one cluster for one deacon. And then so you will have 30 degrees, which will be equivalent to 3 deacons. So when we look at this decimal system and the way this zodiac is formed from these notions of the understanding of these 36 dragons or 36 Draco, when you look at the Hindu astrology and we understand the Naga serpent and the naming of America, which happened to also be the name of Tupac, Amuru. And when we look at the wise serpent or the wisdom or the knowledge that supposedly comes from the serpent, it's in reference to the sun, the soul, and its navigation and its travel in a full circle, 360 degrees. So when you look at circumnavigation, right, circumference of a circle, pi, how fertility and growth, the Fibonacci sequence, all these things that vibrate mathematically on this sequence. When you look at the Fibonacci sequence or just growth in dealing with nature, nurture, and how things are formed based upon the soul's 360 movement, right? So when you look at the dragons, the Dracos, and how these things in the Hindu astrology were laid out in these understanding of 136, when you look at it, the 12 zodiacs, one zodiac would be 3 deacons. So it would be 3 times 12, which gives you this 36 deacons. So when you look at ancient India and the Naga serpent and these things, these festivals that take place in Cambodia, Angkor Wat during the spring, during the equinox, you have to understand how these ley lines of these cities are laid out universally based upon this magnetism that develops from the sun going from the northern tropic to the southern tropic. And when we look at the northern tropic, it's during the summer that the sun comes into this peak. This is between the time of Cancer and June, the time of June. When you look at Gemini, the twins, and these different mythology of the twins and the significance when you understand the winter and the summer and the correlation with Juno and January, winter January, and June, Juno, and the dog, the Canis, minor and major, and how all these star systems in why North America was such an important place when it comes to celestial observance. You have to understand how these deacons also outline the elemental parts of the zodiac. Because a lot of people talk about their signs and how it affects their behavior. They hardly ever get into the elemental metaphysics of the particular sign in regards to storms and different things to that nature, fire, water, things of that sort. So when you look at the deacons, they give face or they give identity to these things. So this is why we see the mythology in regards to the dragon, the fire breathing, is in the different signs, the water signs, the different things, the metamorphosis of different animals, zoo types, keystone species. These things show arcs or show pyramids. When we understand hierarchy and how pyramid systems and the mathematics and these things get taught and shaped, we understand 320 degrees for that 160, and this circumnavigation that began leaving this coast here of the Americas to follow this celestial procession annually and to follow these sites and come into these different areas and build and start traditions, celestial traditions annually. This is how one's reign and these things began to be counted. So when you look at the first law codes, you'll see the Hammurabi law code. And when you look at the Hammurabi law code, which happens to be a Sumerian Shemitic, one of the first found proofs of an ancient code system dealing with civics, dealing with how to operate, all aligned in regards to the celestial realms. So when you look at the code systems, the codex here in Mesoamerica, and how these things, judgment and courts, when you look at a courtroom or a synagogue, it's reference the sun. And when you understand the house of the sun and or these things, birth houses, these things, hospitals, and how medicine, all of these things came from the knowledge of astrology. We understand the teachings of medicine and how the teachings of medicine developed from understanding the celestial realms and to grow agriculture, to cultivate. This is where we get occult knowledge from, the hidden things unknown that we make visible through the physical. So these things are coded in sound, shape. So this is why we can feel when someone lies to us when they don't operate according to this foundational universal knowledge. You can feel it, right? So you can manipulate it the same way alchemy and the development of the teaching of alchemy and the development of just forming arithmetic, basically basic arithmetic through the observations of the celestial realms from here, from the Americas. When you look at the Canis Major and the Northern Tropic, which is referenced the month of Tammuz, when you look at Tammuz and the dragon, the Draco, and the Northern Hemisphere, that is a high point when you look at, especially in the Americas, the 4th of July, in reference to the Sirius star system in this particular time. We understand the Leo, Atlantis, and the feline aspect when you look at the Sphinx and these different things in regards to Atlantis, the underworld, and the ancient name of Israel, Ariel. When you look at Ariel and the lion, Ra, kingdom, right? Kingship, regalia, rulership, deals with measuring metrics. When you look at the womb in Hebrew, it refers to the matrix. When you look at the matrix, it's a measure, it's a metric system. So no matter what metric system you're using is using a measurement for a certain degree, for a certain calculation. Sometimes it could be for a local calculation. Sometimes it could be for universal. So this is why these calendars and the different writing systems get confusing at times, is because you have to understand the association of use. And this is why the landmass of America is important, because these observations are all built upon the observations of the night sky here in the Americas, as we're experiencing now, the new day. This is how the evening and the morning are the new day. We understand these lands here of America, and how experiencing the night sky, the observation of the night window to look at the celestial realm before the new day can only be done here. So that is important when we look at universal timekeeping and universal calendars from the ancients, the Mayan calendar system, which made when some see 2012 as a prediction, not understanding the reemergence of a newness of that they saw coming. Sometimes it's only looked at as an apocalyptic thing, when they understand they were looking at it, a reemergence of newness, as some say, a reset. So when you look at these ideologies and these things are based upon the orders of the heavens and the sunrise and sunset and the observance here, the ancient cultures that form these codex and calendars to provide a universal code to operate in each deacon, each face. So each 10-degree portion of the earth was outlined and ley line and placed someone to be an authority. So that is when we look at December, and we look here at the decimal, 10 degrees, 10 days. It's all connected uh, with the dragon, the Draco. And it's just crazy that we don't refer to this time as the 10th month, but we'll say December and still write the number 12. You know, so when we look at how the numbers and sound and vibrations are misused to where it is almost normal, it's normal, right? To hear December and think 12, right? When one writes out the date, they're going to say it's December. They're going to look at the number 12 and say December when it should be 10. So this is an issue. If you're reading something ancient and it's referring to a certain time, this is why true timing and understanding the dating systems get confusing when researching historical documents and events. When you look at wars, a lot of wars take place because of celestial events, comets, things that take place in the celestial realm, give indications that somehow a power or a being was on their side. That knowledge had to be universal for the other side to have that perspective to be like, oh, this war is not ours because of this celestial sign. So a lot of things throughout history, historical information in regards to time periods get placed in the wrong time frame just because of how the changing of calendars and dating systems, and then the anachronisms we make of associating December with the 10th month as a 12th month affects the way why we don't understand this time of a new year coming into January, and why the time of death, the death of the soul, and baptism. You understand Baphomet, the goat, Sagittarius, and all these different things and sacrifices that the ancients started doing because of misunderstanding of the celestial realm, or over observing and associating events due to occurrences in the sky. When you look at the death of children, childbirth, when you look at a lot of this particular time, the gods and the deities dealing with water, fertility, are dealing with the death of children, babies. And this is how we get the birth house and hospitals and birth certificates. To this day, when we understand these law codes based upon the celestial realms, starting from the ancient codexes here in Mesoamerica, as well as what we see throughout Sumeria through the Hammurabi law code. Peace.